All right, so hello everyone. We are going to start our January agenda review. And for the new council members, how this works is I'm just going to read through the agenda for January's meeting. And I'll start with the introductory and the title, and then I will take questions and we'll go down the list. I will have the tweener that we received today up in case people haven't seen it. So we are going to start with finance, and the first introductory is introductory number 1, authorization of the 2022 administrative tax cancellations and refunds. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Introductory number 2 is capital improvement program, city school district. Any questions?
I do have a question, Katie.
Mhm.
No, I don't have a question. I was going to ask about RSMP, but it lists it in the third to last paragraph, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, and I have a question, Josanne. We are going to get the full attachment D, correct? Oh, I just lost her.
Yeah, am I still there?
Yes, you're here.
Okay. The attachment, the rest of the attachment was just a letter that was insignificant to this. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're all set.
Okay, so we can confirm though about the no closing of locations.
What the letter said was there are no closing of locations where they're doing CIP, where they're doing any improvements. So it
Okay.
was, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, if there's no other questions, introductory number 3, appointments to the Civil Service Commission. Any questions?
I was just curious if there was any information about why these individuals resigned, if there was anything systemic or they just wanted to resign.
Do you know anything, Josanne? Oh,
I don't. I just know anecdotally that a lot of folks that have been on it for a while just, resign and do other things. So I did not hear that there was anything about this particular one there was a reason or anything. No.
Anecdotally, I know that Sally Partner, who had been on it for a long time, retired from her day job as well. She's just moving into retirement.
okay. I will add it and we can confirm. Any other questions? Okay. Introductory number 4, appointment and reappointment, Rochester Public Library Board of Trustees. Any questions? Okay. Introductory number 44 is a tweener that we got today. It's a reappointment of a marriage officer for Hazel, our city clerk. And I can pull that up if you guys need to see it.
Okay,
Hazel, how many?
did we skip?
Oh, sorry.
What?
Did we skip number 5?
I think we did.
Empowerment Center? Yeah.
Yes, we have Neighborhood Empowerment Center legislation.
My bad, it was not on my document. All right, so back to number 5, introductory number 5 is Financial Empowerment Center grant acceptance.
Who's currently running the financial empowerment centers?
There are 2 folks there currently, and I think they're taking a look at potentially, because there's some overlap with NBD, and potentially having Commissioner Miller oversee it in his department, but that hasn't been finalized.
So do you mean on the administration side?
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, and could we see a plan of how, the funds would be allotted, like a breakdown of personnel and the funds allotted to service provision?
Yes, for all 3 of the funds.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and who the targets are for this specific grant? Is there a primary target population?
I know there is, and I'll be sure to get you guys kind of the presentation for the financial empowerment centers and ask if there's anything specific related to these allocations.
Katie, can you also, and this is just to piggyback on what Josanne said, I think this is a place where maybe not specifically the FECs, but also the entire Office of Community Wealth Building. I'm sure there's still a lot of decisions being made with the new administration, but if we could get a work session when sometime, you know, in the near future, when there seems to be some answers around the bigger picture, I think that'd be really helpful.
Got it? Any other questions? Okay, now back to introductory 44, reappointment of a marriage officer. Any questions?
Hazel, how many marriage officers, how many people do we have able to conduct marriages in the office?
It's the city clerk and the deputy city clerk.
Got it.
And the mayor can also perform marriages.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to neighborhood and business development. Introductory number 6, lease agreement 1 Mount Hope Avenue, Bavona Child Advocacy Center. Any questions? Okay. Introductory number 7, authorizing a grant application, New York State Homes and Community Renewal CARES Act, CDBG CV. Any questions?
That rattled
Yes.
off your tongue. Nice, Katie.
Thank you.
Sorry if you hear my dog lapping up water here. He always waits till I'm in a meeting. Is there a soft second lien on these homes so that if they were to sell the home after they renovated it or within the 5 years, that there will be a retraction of these funds?
I do know in the transmittal, Josanne, correct me if I'm incorrect. I believe it says they have to rent them out. Yeah, so in the 3rd paragraph, it says landlords are required to lease all renovated units to households for the 5 years after the grant.
I understand, but if they sell it after 4 years, what happens to those funds?
Okay. So.
And it says privately held. Does that mean that it has to be held under that person's name, or can it be held in an LLC, which is how most of them would be held?
I will ask.
I have kind of a question that's related to the first one you asked, Councilmember Pio. Is there a requirement that the landlord retain the housing for that for a certain period of time, whether it be 5 years or longer?
And is there a reason why the units have to be in existence before 1978? And what processes would be in place to ensure that the work was done properly to upgrade the units to make them livable for tenants? And how do we know and enforce that these units are being rented for a 5-year period and not being sold on year 4?
Councilmember Martin, you can ask that question on the 1978 piece, but it's basically when the lead paint changed. Anything before 1978 included lead paint.
Amazing, thank you.
And what was the
So-
last part of your question? I'm sorry.
What systems will be in place to ensure that the work was done properly and are up to code, and the buildings are up to code, and how do we ensure that the buildings aren't being sold on year 4 and that they are still being rented affordably through the 5-year required period? Like what enforcement mechanisms will be in place?
Katie, can I just build off of that for a second? You can make it a separate question, or you can add my piece onto Councilmember Martin's, but I also want to know how they're going to enforce the 50% AMI over 5 years. I think they'll figure out pretty quickly if someone tries to sell a property, but I actually don't know what we have in place to figure out what people are charging for rent and how we can ensure that everyone renting is at 50% or under AMI.
Got it.
I'd also like to know if there's discretion on if we can extend that past 5 years, or if that comes from the state.
Hey, Katie,
Yes.
can you hear me? I'm sorry, you guys know this is the time I have to pick up my wife, so I'm on the road. Just put a side note, because I think it's germane to some of the questions that are being asked. Over the years, I've gotten a significant amount of complaints around the work that's being done on properties by the city through contractors. And so it'd be nice to get a work session on that whole process of work being done, contractors being done, enforcement, follow up, how complaints are handled, the whole situation around work being done on property. So I know it's not specific to the transmittal, but I think it's germane to some of the questions that are being asked. I'd like to have a work session on that whole topic, please.
Okay.
I have a question around, it states the income is 50% AMI or lower, but it didn't state that the rents are affordable to that AMI. So can we get clarification on that?
And then Katie, it says that basically this would allow for projects to exceed the current maximum 20K. Could we get a sense of what the dollar amount would be in excession of that $20,000?
I know in the legislation review that Josanne and I had with NBD, they don't know the number yet.
Okay.
I don't know if Josanne has any updated information.
I'm sorry, Katie. I was on a phone with NBT. So let's just tell me the question again. Thanks, Henry.
Did we find out the excess amount of what they're going to be able to go over the 20,000 in grant funds since Tuesday?
No.
At the end of 5 years, is there any restrictions in place? Can the landlord raise rents to market rate from the affordable amount, which would pretty much ensure that in 5 years the tenant will be displaced?
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a couple more questions if no one else does.
Go ahead.
Are there any restrictions around code violations, or is that kind of because we need to make repairs, that's not a consideration?
Can you elaborate a little more on that one?
Are there any restrictions on the grant that landlords can't have code violations?
Oh, got it.
Mary, do you mean on that specific property, or do you mean in general on any properties they may?
I guess that's both.
Yeah.
Can we can people use this money to purchase their own home and make repairs, or is this specifically for landlords?
My understanding is it's specifically for landlords for this.
Is the money flexible to be used in that way, or do we have to use it this way?
Good question. Don't know the answer to that.
Two more.
1 second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess this is a question that may not have a great answer, but you know, we're putting 5 million into this repair grant, but only have 450,000 into the Housing Trust Fund, and wondering if CARES Act or ARPA dollars can be used to see the Housing Trust Fund. And then finally, can we get an accounting of the CARES Act allocations and how much is remaining?
Just for what it's worth, Mary, I get the sense this is not our CARES Act money. Are you asking for this for a analysis of what the state has in CARES money left? Because this is us accessing money from HCR.
Okay, yep, thank
Yeah.
you for that.
They basically explained that this is essentially money that needs to be spent because other communities didn't spend it down. So they're
it.
reopening applications.
Okay. I still do want to know what's left for CARES Act, but thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. Anybody else for introductory 7? Okay. Introductory number 8, authority to extend qualifying pilot agreements, affordable renting housing projects. Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
Who would like to go first?
I would like him to go first.
Okay.
so I'll just start with one question, and that is, according to the YouTube session that I watched, they mentioned that there were up to 80 pilot agreements, but only 6 would be impacted. So I just wanted clarification on that. And if we have a list somewhere of those 80.
Do you mind, Kim, do you mind if I just refine that question a little bit, or at least try to?
Please.
Katie, can you ask for a list of every property that has a pilot and specifically the properties that are going to be impacted by this extension? 2 separate lists.
Could we also get the pilot expiration date and the breakdown of units by AMI
Thank
for
you.
those,
For all 80 or for the 6?
for the 6?
And can we also get a list of specific guidelines that determine compliance with New York State and city requirements to provide safe and affordable housing?
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have 2 additional questions. One is, I don't know exactly how I want to phrase this because of a new administration, but I'd like, Josanne, either I want a sense of who's on the current pilot review committee, or if there is a plan for a lot of those seats to shift, for what the kind of timeline of that may be, but just some clarity around the pilot review committee. And then my other question is a little bit more tricky. In the work session, I wasn't able to be there, but I listened to it, and our assessor, Mike Cesaro, was talking about how this would have a net financial impact, a net positive financial impact, I should say, in part because of the way that, you know, these taxes work and sharing with the county, et cetera. I'd like for the administration to just attempt to quantify that, even by just highlighting one example property of what would happen if the pilot were to, expire versus what the maintenance of the pilot would do. And Josanne, if that's going to be an impossible thing, then just some way to to kind of quantify how this has a net positive impact would be helpful.
Okay, yep.
One last question for me. Does the pilot extend past the time frame of mandated affordable housing?
Anybody else? Okay. Introductory 9, amending ordinance number 96-9, pilot Woodward Affordable Housing Project. Any questions?
Just if there are any open code violations on any of the existing properties. On any of the properties, I should say.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When the pilot ends and past owner refinances, do they intend to continue to provide affordable rents at the same level?
It's not passed on though, it's an affiliate, right?
Is that a question?
That was, but it was an open question.
Okay. I do not know. I'm looking.
Well, I think the wording needs to be fixed because it says it's Woodward LP, an entity formed for the project is an affiliate of Pastone. So is it Pastone that says it expects to pursue a funding application to refinance and rehab? Or is it Woodward LP that's going to fund rehab, refinance?
You should definitely ask that, but I know sometimes in the past, Pathstone or places like that would form an affiliate just for specific projects, but it is under the umbrella of Pathstone. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. But
Okay.
I want to always keep track of the money.
Yep.
If it's going on an umbrella corporation that has multiple under it, just want to keep track of the money. That's all.
Got it. Anybody else? Okay. Introductory number 10, zoning map amendment 10 through 10.5 Jones Ave. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Introductory number 11.
I'm sorry. I did have
Go for
something
it.
there. Disregard, continue, sorry.
Okay. Introductory number 11, zoning map amendment 222 and 226 Merchants Road. Any questions?
I guess
Okay.
my question is just
Oh.
the community center district is that the zoning district where most things are allowed by right?
I do not know, but I can ask it.
We should get a list, Katie. I would ask for the list of zoning codes and what they mean, because it is really confusing and hard to memorize them all.
It does make it so it's super, super flexible though. I can tell you that.
It's true.
Katie, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I had a question on 10, but I was having technical difficulties.
Okay, go ahead.
If it's just office space, and I guess attached to that, if the environmental laboratory, if there's any concern about impact to the neighborhood. And no questions for me on 11. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on introductory 11? Okay. Introductory 12, zoning map amendment, 350 Benton Street. Any questions?
I do, and someone just rang my doorbell, so my dog's going crazy here. That's a brownfield site. So who's going to be responsible for that cleanup? If we sell it to them, it becomes their responsibility, correct?
Yes,
Isn't a
but
parking lot remediation?
I don't think it does because it's going to be made a parking lot. There's nothing that's going to be built on it.
Well, now, but in 5-10 years, we never know.
Yeah.
That's the
What is the parking lot for?
That business, there is, I think it's a restaurant. There's a restaurant there and they wanted a parking lot.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like a formal answer to that because it doesn't list the business, it just lists the applicant.
Oh, okay.
Also, this doesn't approve the parking lot.
Right.
It doesn't approve the curb cut onto Benton. The planning commission, they approved the parking lot, but not the curb cut, which was the rub with a lot of the neighbors there. They did not want the curb cut on Benton.
Is this the last time it'll come before council?
Um,
I was under the impression it would have to come back for site plan.
yes.
But I will ask if you would like me to.
I think we should just clarify, yes.
Yeah.
Also, page 3 does clarify what neighborhood center district C1 zoning is and includes.
Oh, he included it, right.
I guess, yeah, my question was it was Union. I think we had one a couple of months ago that permitted a hotel and the neighbors were concerned. And it was my understanding that most things were allowed by right. And so I wasn't sure if that's the same zoning as the Ambassador project on Union Street. That's really what I wanted to know.
I can add it. That was for 11 though, right? Or
Yes.
just in general, okay. Okay. Any other questions for introductory 12? Okay. Now on to Parks and Public Works. Introductories 13, 14, 15, 16, State Street Reconstruction Project, Basin Street to Interloop. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. I'd like I appreciate the maps that were included, but I'd like for there to be some, if the administration could include something that shows the connection of bike facilities with the transformations currently being done at both Charles Carroll Park and across the street. Right now, it sort of indicates that with multi-use trail, but I'd like to see specifically what the biking amenities are going to be.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, what's a sharrow? SHARROW.
Who wants to take it?
The fake
It's a
bike lane.
it's a shared lane, Jose. It's kind of like when it's like when there's not a separated bike lane, even with paint. It's just like bikes.
It looks like this.
Yeah.
There are two arrows like this. That's what makes it a share. Get the arrow.
Okay. So that includes you can ride scooters on there, right?
I can ask.
Whatever the code says.
All right. Thank you.
Talk about things that aren't easy to memorize, right, Josanne?
I love that, Cheryl. I love the word, though.
Anyone
I was
else?
happy. I was happy with the YMCA thing you were trying to do there.
It's accurate. Anybody else? Okay. Introductory 17 and 18, Orange Street and Saxon Street Rehabilitation Project. Orange Street, Saxon Street to West Broad, Saxon Street, J Street to West Broad. Any questions?
Are the red lines in the first map? I guess I don't know what the red lines indicate. Do they indicate bike lanes? Or just the location of the project?
I'm pretty sure it's just the location of the project.
Yes.
Because the next one shows the bike lanes. The next page.
Got it. I guess my question then is if they have talked to the school about the importance of bike lanes being attached to school 17 and if the school has indicated anything about volume of kids who ride their bikes to school. Because at the moment, the maps indicate that there are not bike lanes being attached to the school. Or leading to the school, I should say.
I also have a question for this one as well as the group of other legislation as well. I've seen in other cities where they had actual poles in between the driving lanes and the bike lanes. Have we looked into that, what the costs are for that? Possibly doing that on at least the main streets or the streets that are around the schools to keep more safety for our bike riders and scooters.
Do you say specifically around the school or specifically?
Well, mostly the main streets, honestly,
Okay.
the main streets or, right around the school areas as well, just to keep the lanes completely separate.
Jose, you'll see that's often is referred to as separated bike lanes. And on the section of East Main that's currently under construction, it will be separated by trees and a little strip of lawn. That's just the language to watch for.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And did you want that question on 13 through 16 and 17 through 18?
Yes, are we looking into putting those in place for future road reconstructions? Because State Street is very busy, extremely busy. So having bike lanes there, it's kind of scary.
Anybody else for 17 and 18?
Just another statement on protected bike lanes, Councilmember Pio. One of the challenges I know is the width of the road, and that's why main roads like East Main make sense. State Street probably would make sense if you could do it in a way that doesn't eliminate too much of the existing parking needs. But that's one of the big challenges, and I think when we've discussed it in the past, I know East Main was kind of viewed as the model project to see how this would work, and with the idea that we would extend and expand that in the future.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, introductory 19 agreement, Bergman Associates, architects, engineers, landscape architects, and surveyors, DPC, brewery line trail project. Any questions? Okay,
I do have a question.
okay.
Sorry. Are we anticipating putting some other breweries over there? Any projects coming up to make it an actual brewery spot?
Okay,
Thank you.
anybody else? Okay, Introductory 20, Rochester Fire Department Firehouse Needs Assessment. Any questions?
I got one. Hey, Will, you with us here? I'm sorry, I can't see who's on because I'm on my phone.
Oh, I'm always present, baby. What's happening?
Hey, Will, is this a lot different from, what was that, the Fitch study?
Yes.
Is this a
Yes,
lot
the-
different than that one?
Yes, it is. This is a whole lot different than the Fitch study. Fitch study broke down different scenarios as it relates to response times, potential relocation, reallocation of firehouses, and/or consolidation of firehouses. This is more of a more laser focus on needs and assessments. Now, I don't have the transmittal before me. Again, I'm in the car, but it's different. Yes, to answer your question,
Okay.
it's not looking. I think the fifth report was looking to how basically the final reason for it was how to save the city money. Basically, that's what that whole report was all about. How can we consolidate and potentially save the city money? But this is like more so what does the fire department actually need to be more successful?
Got it. Thank you.
The need for separated facilities by gender or non-gendered facilities was one of the big things that they pointed out to me in my meeting with DES that they'll be looking at.
That is correct, Beth. That we have evolved, of course, over the years, and have more women on the job, but the facilities are not adequate for women, and so that is another one of the issues.
Exactly.
Anybody else on introductory 20? Okay. Introductory 21, amending ordinance number 2021-364, 2021 preventative maintenance, Northwest Group 12, driving Park Ave, Ramona Street to Dewey Ave, Emerson Street, Mount Read Boulevard to Sherman Street, J Street, Mount Read Boulevard to Acgrade Railroad Crossing. Any questions?
Just an ask to include those trustee bike lane maps that they have on other transmittals. There just isn't one on this one. Thanks.
This is just to amend wording, right?
It's correcting an error in the original ordinance, and it said originally the funds would be used to design and for construction admin services, and it's changing it to fund construction and resident project representation, RPR.
So it's not any additional funding. It's really just to correct any wording that was.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anybody else? Okay. Introductory number 22, appropriation, Rochester Pure Waters District Street Improvements Projects. Any questions?
Just when the schedule of when this work of when $750,000 will be utilized, and if they have a sense of when they will decide where it will be utilized.
Anybody else? Okay. Introductory number 23, agreement MRB Group, engineering, architecture and surveying, DPC, hydraulic model simulation support services. Any questions?
I do have a question.
Mhm.
It says the hydraulic model has been a vital tool used for optimizing pressures in the city's southwest quadrant. Is it not in the other 3 quadrants?
Southwest quadrant, Jose is, excuse me, Councilmember Pio is the only one that was not meeting state requirements. That's just something that historically has been a problem in the southwest quadrant. The other quadrants don't have that problem. It's
Okay.
just the way the land lays and the water, the land lays and the water flows. But you can ask it.
Yeah,
always
because
good
I
to
have,
ask. Mhm.
I've got some pretty high up streets in the northwest, like Lakeview Park. I would think that we would utilize the same technology. So thank you for the explanation, though.
Sure.
Anybody else? Introductory 24, a mandatory agreement, Livingston County Water and Sewer Authority license agreement. And it should be noted that the original transmittal said the agreement was $1. The agreement is actually $100.
But it was, is that?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
There will not be any money
No.
associated with it now.
Correct.
No questions? Okay. Introductory 25, bond authorization 2022 water main lining and lead service replacement project.
I know we had a work session on this. I believe it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. That I asked for. Can we get an update? I know this is what 195 services.
Yep.
So we know that that this is a huge taking on trying to replace all of our lead services, and we know there is absolutely no safe percentage of lead, and so it'd be nice to get an update as to where are we at as far as getting to zero lead services in our city. It'd be nice to kind of see that running tally from time to time, whether it be quarterly or biannually or et cetera.
Maybe to piggyback on that, is there a plan to get to zero in terms of, benchmark dates?
Anybody else?
Yes, I do see that all the other 3 districts are getting work done. Northwest does not have a single street getting work done on this one. So do we have any plans for work in the Northwest for water mains and residential lead service lines this year?
So is that a little shade there, Jose?
Just a tad bit.
Well, as it relates to that, Katie, and forgive me if this has already been asked and presented. If it is, then it'd be easy to give to us. Are there other areas within the city that are worse, than other sections? It'd be nice to know, like, what is the area that is the oldest and lead services are maybe deteriorated the worst?
Got it. Anybody else on introductory 25?
Katie, I think we sort of asked that question. They should ask it, but as I recall, they said that it's in the CIP, which streets will happen when every year.
Okay.
I have one question. So with the infrastructure dollars that are coming, do they anticipate prioritizing lead service replacement?
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Introductory number 26, a mandatory agreement, New York State Department of Transportation, Snow and Ice Control Services. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to Public Safety, Recreation, and Human Services. Introductory number 27, appropriation of federal forfeiture funds. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
It says it's being used to purchase a 3D printer and supplementary materials. I was wondering, I guess, is this the material cost is high with 3D printers, and if this was kind of a one-time situation, or if there was a plan for the continued use of the machine in terms of the funds.
Katie, it's not really a question, it's just a suggestion, offer for consideration. Just because in past, we this question comes up a lot as it relates to federal forfeiture funds. Would you make sure that the new members have that document that explains what the federal forfeiture funds are, what their uses are, very specific, and also I believe the last time they gave it to us, it also showed how much was left in that fund. I think it'd be very helpful for our new members.
Yep. And I do believe, Josanne, that the last line on transmittals now with federal forfeiture funds state how much is left, correct?
Yeah. Yes, they always state that on the transmittal.
So now there's 340,000 left.
Thanks, Katie. I missed that.
Yep. But I do believe we have that document, so I'll look for it. And if not, Josanne and I will get it.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Councilman Lightfoot.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to know what the high-tech equipment they'd be using the plastic material to protect. And also, would the 3D printers specifically only be used to print those protection materials, or will they be used for other things? Is this a single-use 3D printer equipment, or what other plans or usages do they plan on employing for this specific material?
Got it. Anybody else?
I would like to know who is the person in the RPD, or where is this person that knows how to use a 3D printer? That's amazing. But do we
Right,
train,
'cause
have we, what was that?
You got to design the parts, so that takes some knowledge.
Right.
I can tell you,
Cool.
Commissioner Miller in NBD has a 3D printer and knows how to use it.
That is not shocking to me.
I know, right?
Okay, I will ask what department and what position will be responsible.
Sure.
And maybe is there money for training that is not reflected in this that will be allocated in the future?
Including training me, because I would love to learn.
I'll just hook you up with Jesse.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Anybody else for introductory number 27? Okay, introductory number 28, agreements, raise funds, trauma training, and officer wellness for RPD. Any questions?
I do. I just want to see how this ties into the Executive Order 203, because I believe we had officer wellness in that as well. I think, is that correct, Mr. President? I believe officer wellness was mentioned in the Executive Order 203.
Absolutely, that's correct. And I think in addition to that, I feel like we should have an understanding of well, for me, I want to get an understanding of why we didn't look at any local entities for this.
Yeah, similar to that, I'm just curious why the no RFP justification.
Another concern I want to be addressed is the police officers are admittedly traumatized. So I don't know that they also being responsible for providing wellness services to other traumatized police officers provides the actual support that they need. So I'd want to know why not utilize ongoing services from mental health professionals and peers instead of relying on police officers to also provide mental health services in addition to their work schedule.
I think it's along this line of thought here. I'm wondering if in addition to officers or, well, I guess the question would be, could there be other individuals trained in this train the trainer model besides sworn officers?
Okay,
Also, they talk about using the model for Antonio Police Department responding to mental health calls, but in Rochester, we have an alternate response. So I guess my question is, I guess what portion of the training covers dealing with mental health responses in the community versus their own?
I also want to note that the race recommendation includes addressing trauma in police officers and also community members, and solution points and a lot of the other corporations who are being recommended specifically provide trainings for police officers. So I'm wondering where the community piece comes in, and if they have any evidence of their trainings impacting the larger community outside of police officers.
okay.
Katie, can you also ask for a snapshot of where we are with the $1 million of unrestricted race commission funding? What this brings us to in the end?
Got it. Anybody else?
This isn't really a question, but Mary, this might be something that we could use for that group that we're working on.
Yeah. It's definitely worth exploring.
So let's keep that in mind.
Are we going to
That's
have a group? Are we going to have a group screening of this documentary? There's a documentary mentioned in the transmittal.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you lost me.
Yeah.
The HBO show, right?
Oops. Okay. If there are no other questions.
I guess I'm trying to understand the allocation of funding. Is the 122,000 the because the numbers don't add up to 122. It's not the combination of it. So I'm wondering, is the 122 being transferred in, and then some of the police budget will be used?
I will ask for, I was trying to read it really quickly again. I'll ask for a breakdown, like how they provide in DES projects, that type of table. But it does say on the last page, the remaining 72,000 will be used to pay for overtime to backfill officer shifts while they're attending training. But I'm not sure if
Okay.
that adds up to what you were looking for.
Okay.
I will have it. Okay. Introductory number 29, appropriation and budget amendment, ARPA funds, the International Plaza. Any
Can
questions?
we get a breakdown of how these funds will be used?
Got it.
Um,
Anyone else?
I also understand, I could be wrong, but the original request was for 165,000, and so wondering why the decrease in funding.
Do you mean, what original request do you mean?
That was planned to go to council.
Okay.
Mary, can you just elaborate on that just a little? Because I didn't see any paperwork with that. Was there something? Maybe we can talk offline.
We can do that.
Okay.
I have a question when you're ready, Katie.
Go ahead.
I would like to know the current vending kiosks or the current vending spots. Are they fully utilized year round currently? So we're going to be, I want to make sure if we're adding more that the current ones are maxed out. And that these kiosks would be able to be utilized in the wintertime. Because it seems like $75,000 for additional vending kiosks isn't very much.
Mhm. Anyone else? Okay. Introductory number 30, agreement youth basketball training. Any questions?
Is this in the youth sports complex? And is it drop-in or is it a specific program that's being run?
Anyone
Hey,
else?
Mitch, when we walked through the sports complex that first time, those were the same guys, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
all excellent basketball players, I might add.
Anybody else?
Yeah, one question. It states that the consultants would deliver more than 500 hours of service annually at less than market rate. If they're doing good work, I just question why we couldn't fund them at the rate that is appropriate. It's just a question.
Anyone else? Okay. Introductory number 31, intermunicipal agreement, Monroe County's improving criminal justice responses to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking grant. Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The county received 1 million, but we're getting, less than 130, it looks like. Do we know what else the county is using it for? Or why we didn't get more?
Mary, that is a fantastic question.
Could we get a breakdown of how the remaining grant money is allocated? Specifically, I'm curious about if any of these funds will go to survivors of violence and long-term services for them.
Okay.
Other question is, can we get a description of the charge for the RPD's DART team?
Got it. Anybody else?
Yes. Do we have any funds available or that we're using to house those who are victims? like to get them out of the environment that they're in and put them up in a place to keep them safe? Is there any, do we have any of that currently? Or does the county have any of that currently?
Anybody else?
Another just general question. Do we have that as a city? Do we have any safe spaces for people? And I mean for people who want to speak up against those who are abusing them, stalking them, people who want to be whistleblowers for like people who are shooting people, a safe space to keep them separate while things are going on. Do we have that as a city?
Like a witness protection program?
There are actually several of them within the city. A few of them are here on the west side. They tend to try to keep them kind of quiet,
Makes sense.
because you know what I mean. But there are I know of at least 3 over here on the west side.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
There are several, Councilman Peel, there are several throughout the city, and the city does contract with them sometimes. But yeah, there are at least 8 places.
Okay, that doesn't need to be a question, Katie. And
Got it.
Thank you. Thanks, Willie.
Anybody else on introductory number 31?
Just to follow up to what was just stated, could we get a list of the 8 locations or whichever locations that are available, just for our knowledge?
President Melendez, you cannot, because the addresses, you can get a name of the place, but the addresses are kept secret.
Thank you. Understand. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yoki introductory 32, grant agreement, New York State Services, training officers, prosecution. That's not what it says. Yes, it is. Violence Against Women formula grant. It's been a long week.
I stumbled on that one too.
Any questions?
Seems like there's a word missing or something.
Yeah. No questions? Okay. Introductory number 30.
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to think of what my question is, because I think this stop VAWA, that's not from the city. That's who's giving us the grant, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just think there's an opportunity there for violence against men as well. But that's not us. That's a different entity. So disregard. I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay. Okay, if there are none. Introductory number 33, appropriation and budget amendment, American Rescue Plan Act, COVID response and vaccination incentives.
Yeah, Katie, I have a couple of questions here. First of all, why is the first of all, the 5,000, how will it be distributed? And I asked that because I did 5 vaccination things in my barbershop this summer. And I noticed I got the most attendance when we were doing incentives. So I'm wondering how will these incentives be? What is the plan for the incentives, vaccination incentives, and the COVID response? Is there a COVID response plan? And what is the vaccination incentive plan? And if it is similar to what Common Ground Health were doing this summer through barbershops, why is the amount so low? $5,000 seems low to me.
I would completely agree with that. We did some events in Beechwood over the summer, and we got an incredible turnout with the combination of incentives and money spent for promotion. So can this money be used for promotion of the events? When we advertised on the radio, we got people that said that they came just because they heard it. And again, why is the amount so low? We really need to be holding these events more often.
I agree, Mary. When it was on the radio, I did get more participation. So definitely should have some marketing dollars towards radio.
The last question is, prior to, they were only for first and second shots, and then children over 11, I think. Is there expanded availability for boosters and for younger children?
Okay. Anybody else on introductory number 33?
I don't think this pertains to this. It might be a completely separate question, but for, is there any way to use any of this funding, ARPA funding, for actual health? Meaning like gym memberships or, food insecurity, something that we can put forth to think about the long-term health? Paying for memberships for our city employees for the gym.
Got it. Anybody else?
How's the food down in our thing in the basement?
I assume
it
this
like
is
healthy
not an
food?
agenda review.
Remember, you're on the air.
So the food is limited now. They used to have pre-COVID, they used to have a salad bar.
Mhm.
Okay.
Soups, different, there was definitely a lot of healthy options, but they have had
Okay.
to move to just sandwiches, box sandwiches, soup, and like a small salad, no protein, wrapped. Everything's wrapped and pre-done. So it's very different now.
It's prepared from the convention center folks
Yes.
now.
Mhm.
So it's
Well, it always
really-
was. It always was.
Oh, it always was. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Introductory number 34, Appropriation and Budget Amendment, American Rescue Plan Act, Healthcare Workforce Resiliency.
I have a question here. So this is exciting, but I do wonder, is there any connection to the county as well on this project and any contribution from the county?
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
What are cooperative services?
Okay.
And is there a way that we, this is really providing wraparound services and stipends to help get people on a path to self-sufficiency? Is there a way that either in the current phase or in future phases of Ruby that we can layer the supports?
Do you mean with this program and with things from Ruby?
Right. Like what I was thinking was if we had a kind of a control Ruby and then a program that layered Ruby with this program for healthcare workers to kind of measure the benefits.
Got it.
Katie, I have three questions.
Yep.
First, the Governor Hochul in her State of the State yesterday announced I think a $10 billion investment in creating new healthcare jobs. Obviously, this is all brand new since we were even received legislation, but I'd like the administration to comment on if there's a chance to potentially dovetail this with that announcement. That's one. Two, I'd like to understand how many net jobs does this expenditure plan on creating and training for? And finally, although I certainly agree with President Melendez that the county should be at the table, I also firmly believe that our hospital systems need to be at the table for this, considering they are all spending an insane amount of money right now on overtime and travel nurses, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering if there has been any outreach done to Rochester Regional Health or the University of Rochester Medical Center and what their role in this project may be.
Got it. Anybody else on introductory number 34? Okay. Introductory number 35, Agreement Society for the Protection Care of Children Comprehensive Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Grant. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, I know Vice President Lupien, you want to go back to NBD 11?
Yes.
Let me find
So-
it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So looking at the map, it's unclear, the two parcels. There's kind of like an unpaved parking lot area behind the business, and then there's a kind of wild area that's adjacent to the park. And I'm wondering if the parcels include that wild area, or if it's just the unpaved kind of parking area behind the building.
Anybody else need to return to any introductories? Okay, if not, no, go ahead.
Before we leave altogether, Commissioner Miller has very generously offered to do a historic tour of City Hall, especially for the newcomers, but for anybody who's interested. So could I just get an indication of who else might be interested besides Stanley and Kim and their legislative aides? Mary, I see your hand. Miguel. Jose.
Yeah, we didn't get no tour.
I mean, I want to hear what Dana has to talk
Me
about the
too.
tour.
Right, Stanley and Kim got all the benefits.
We deserve it all.
That's the advantage of having someone who didn't get certain things 4 years ago step up and say, this would be awfully nice. So, okay, maybe we can tag it next to a work session or something, Katie, but we'll be working on that.
Sounds
Great.
fun.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we are all set. And I will see everyone, I don't know when.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Great.
Take
Bye.
care, everybody. Stay safe.